What's up, y'all? This is John Mindy, and welcome to Deal Team 6, the podcast. Let's go. Woo! What up, y'all? John Mindy here, Deal Team 6, the podcast. We are diving right into content here today. If you are listening, you are one of a couple different versions of people. Number one, you're a top performer. You're somebody who craves growth. You're saying, hey, I continue to grow, evolve, get better, learn, train, advance. Or you are somebody that's recognizing, hey, that's what my competition is doing. How do I catch my top performers that are in front of me, whether that's on the sales board, whether that's as a manager, a leader, a speaker, coach, consultant, business owner, entrepreneur. And we're recognizing, hey, what are the little things that I can do to constantly get a leg up on my peers, on my competition, and people in my day-to-day life or in the specific industries in which I choose to do business. What I've learned over the course of years of experience is it's not just one thing, right? It's a lot of little things that go into creating a top performer, creating something that is impossible to catch. And what we're going to focus on today, I think, is the biggest needle mover of them all. Number one, because very few people practice it consistently. And number two, the 1 or 2% of people that do practice this consistently are constantly standing out day to day, meeting to meeting, week to week, month to month, year to year, in a sea of average to above average performers. This entire concept rests in preparation, right? Preparation. Nobody prepares anymore. We live in a world where it's get in, get out, short attention spans. What have you done for me lately? Can you give me the answers? And very few people are investing their time, their knowledge, and their industry to get prepared for the next objective. So we're going to tackle that here today, and I can promise you by the time this episode is over, for those that finish it, for those that say, hey, I am going to implement what John is teaching, you're going to get better. You're going to develop consistent habits and routines. And most importantly, you will recognize starting today that you are starting to pull away from your peers, your competitors, and everybody else. So before we dive into it, always grateful for those that are listening. Please, please, please share the show. If you're digging the content, if you're getting value, rate the show. Write a review. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please comment, write a review, get some activity in there, pay this message forward. We are building a Deal Team 6 revolutionary army to take over the game and lead with influence. So I appreciate everybody greatly for tapping in. We're going to train on preparation today. We're going to leave here on fire. Shit, I'm already on fire. And let's rock and roll. All right, so I love this topic, preparation. Preparation has been one of the keys to my entire life, right? As a highly recruited Division I quarterback, as a collegiate athlete, and everything that I've done in business, preparation has been one of the specific tools that I've done a really good job of being consistent with, that has allowed me to level up from my competition and my peers consistently. I'm talking about walking into companies, the lowest man on the totem pole, and leapfrogging people that have been there for 5-10 years. Preparation is one of those things that's one of the greatest needle movers. And it's really interesting because it's one of the easiest things to do, but it's one of the things that most people don't implement, especially sales pros and sales leaders and business owners and entrepreneurs. We all have brainwashed ourselves to think we're so damn busy that we don't have the time to put in the prep work for our day-to-day activities. And we could just wing it, right? And we could wing it because we're smart, we're skilled, we're talented. And if we could wing it and check the box, we can move to the next activity. And the challenge becomes checking the boxes and moving to the next activity. We're trading time for no value. And there's so many different examples in that, right? So like, before we start, don't get me wrong. Like most people that have a brain are going to prep and train and prepare for big things, right? If I'm playing in the Super Bowl on Sunday, there's probably not too many athletes that are just going to show up and wing it. There's going to be a huge amount of dedication and prep work to that game, right? But if I'm just walking into a meeting tomorrow morning, a daily huddle, how many people are actually showing up saying, I did X amount of prep work? Probably very little, right? And I can tell you firsthand in leading hundreds of sales reps and being a part of hugely successful organizations, nobody prepares, especially in today's day and age where we have such a short attention span and we feel like we're just being pulled in so many different directions. A lot of people don't understand the value of simple preparation. So we're going to start here just with what I call your 3 to 5 minute blitz. So we're going to call this your blitz prep work, right? This is something nobody does. And I'm going to give a really clean example, and we're going to use sales pros and sales leaders as this example. So my sales leaders, if you're good at what you do, you probably hold pretty consistent huddles. And those huddles probably center around reporting numbers and outcomes and agendas for the day. If you're trying to build some culture, there's probably some gratitude or some wins. If there's not, there's some free a free softball of value for you. Incorporate wins, incorporate gratitude, incorporate things that make people feel good. But this is what sales meetings typically sound like from the sales leader and sales pro perspective. So if you've got a consistent cadence with your meetings, right? Let's just say, hey, I share a win, I report on what my day looks like, and I go through my one non-negotiable for the day. Here's what the majority of salespeople are going to sound like. Oh, win from yesterday. Well, had some good conversations and put some people in the pipe, or got an enrollment yesterday, or was able to knock down a sale, or it's an afterthought. It's something that they're grabbing from and they're just spewing the first thing they think of. Then they go through their day and they're like, oh, I got, 4 or 5 calls and I'm going to try to advance as many as possible and hope to find a sale. And you're like, shit, there was no value there, right? And I've been in sales huddles where I've led, small groups, 3 to 6 people. I've been on sales huddles where there's 10, 12, 15 reps. And that's a pretty common shitty response. And so whenever you find the one individual, the 5%er who comes in and says, my win from yesterday is I talked to Jim. Jim was a no. We had a great mindset conversation, and I really focused on his big picture goals, and the outcome was Jim was more excited. We've got a quality call 2 scheduled today, right? That's my win. Shit, it's a great win. My day today, I've got 6 calls scheduled. 4 of those are call 1s. 2 of those are sales presentations. Of those 2 presentations, I feel good about 1. The others are kind of a Hail Mary. And then my one thing today, in addition to those 2 presentations, is making sure I advance all 4 of my call 1s to presentation. So think about that. So think about the difference in examples we just shared there. Version 1 versus version 2. And if you multiply that over the course of 5 days per week, 52 weeks per year, year upon year upon year, that version 2 example probably took 3 minutes to 5 minutes of prep work. And imagine what starts to happen in those cultures. Who stands out as a leader, intentionally or unintentionally? Who's more prepared for their day? Who's probably going to have better outcomes? Who does leadership, management, and ownership start to look to as key players? All of that from like 3 to 5 minutes of prep work a day and saying, hey, I'm going to outwork my team, my competitors, my peers by just a little bit daily. And once you start to build that gap in the simplest form, that gap gets further and further and further separated. Because guess what? The average sales reps, the average employees, the average business owners, they're not just going to shift. Because guess what? On Tuesday, they're going to have the same shitty reporting. And on Wednesday, they're going to have the same shitty reporting. And I do Gratitude Thursday with the teams that I work with and lead. And they're going to have some crappy gratitude like, hey, grateful to be alive. And it's like, dude, what are we even doing? Right? So the blitz prep work, and that doesn't only go with huddles, right? If I'm a sales rep and I've got 6 calls for the day, guess what? Spending 3 minutes before my call reviewing my notes, putting together a plan and making sure I know who I'm talking to and where we left off. Holy shit, you want to talk about losing rapport. The fastest way to lose rapport with anybody is just start from scratch and forget who you talked to in the first place, right? I'm super bad at names. And so when someone introduces themselves to me, it's like, hello, my name is Merp. And like, for some reason, my brain just doesn't process the name. Same concept, right? That's a great way to lose rapport. Hey, remind me what your name was? Value cut, right? So if I can invest that blitz time into my calls, into my huddles, into anything that's a daily objective or something that I do consistently, and that's the key, something I do consistently, that 3 to 5 minutes prep blitz, again, is going to start to distance me from my peers. I'm going to stand out. I'm going to be more prepared. And not just that, I'm going to get better results because, I mean, for lack of a better way to put it, like I'm going to be more prepared. So it works in two parts. It differentiates you from business owners and peers and competitors in your industry. But then it also helps you get better results because you're more prepared. What a concept, right? So we call that our blitz prep work, right? And I think for most of us, that's where we could make the greatest advancement today is committing to saying, hey, I'm going to start to implement the blitz. I'm going to put the blitz prep work in. And so that I am more prepared and I'm getting more value out of the things I'm choosing to do, right? And there's selfish and unselfish intention to this, right? So there's selfish and unselfish intention to this. And what I mean is like selfishly, a friend and mentor told me this 11 years ago when I got into the high ticket space. He said, John, you look like and you seem like somebody who has a lot of talent and can be great. He's like, the one thing I would encourage you to do is take a look at everything you do and consider it an audition. Pretend that the tape is always rolling and you are auditioning for the next role, the next position, the next business, the next step in what you're looking to achieve. And if you constantly have that awareness of I am always auditioning for the next thing, you're going to be more prepared. You're going to hold yourself accountable to starting to build the habits of prep work. And what's crazy is this guy's still a friend of mine today, still somebody I look up to here today. He has no clue we had that conversation 11 years ago, but for some reason, that shit stuck in my brain. And I said, that makes sense. I was walking into an industry I had never been a part of before. I was walking into a 9-person team where like 8 of the people in front of me had been doing this for years. And I was the low man on the totem pole. And he saw something in me and he said, hey, look, audition for where you want to be and stand out amongst the crowd and you're going to get there. And I did, right? I was the fastest to be promoted into leadership in this entire company, a company that I've talked about before that was doing $150, $200 million a year in high ticket sales, fastest promoted into leadership. And a lot of that had to do with like skill, talent, whatever. But also a lot of that had to do with the intentional thought and processes I put into being better and different than my peers, right? So there's a selfish inclination to it. Now, the unselfish intention is you create more value, right? So my sales pros, like if you're in meetings and you're just sucking the life out of meetings because you've got nothing to contribute, or you've got below the line shares, or you're just going through the motions, you're negatively impacting your teams. And I'll tell you a secret, you're making it super difficult on your sales leader, on your team lead, to provide value for the rest of the group, right? So unselfishly, by being prepared and putting a 10 over your head to really lead with extreme value, you're helping your team leads out. You're raising the standard of your peers. And again, you're creating a more quality meeting. I fucking hate meetings. I hate them. I hate meeting unless there's an intention and a value to that time. If that's the case, I'll meet all day if we're going to get a greater return of time. But my sales pros, and really matter of fact, my sales leaders, my anybody who's running or a part of meetings, hold yourself accountable to be prepared and give some value. Raise the standard to what you want that to be so that it's not another crappy huddle, right? So again, blitz preparation. Implement it. Game changer. Do it. All right. Now, there's other forms of preparation, right? So, one of the things we won't spend a lot of time on is something that I call extreme prep work, right? And the reason I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it is most average to above average to good and especially top performers, they take their big objectives very seriously and they're going to invest the time and prep for their big Super Bowl moments. And if you're not, like, holy shit, right? So I'm going to assume everybody on this podcast is a top performer or somebody that's chasing top performers and is looking to grow. And I'm going to assume that everybody's spending time preparing for their Super Bowl level activities. Fair to say? But the other thing that we're going to focus on is our mid-level activities, right? Our mid-level activities. And, these could be like masterminds. This could be team trainings. This could be company-wide presentations. Maybe it's not the Super Bowl, the grand finale, the call to action, and it's not as insignificant as like a blitz or a huddle. But maybe I'm hosting a sales training, right? I've been in this game a long time. I could wing trainings with my eyes closed, and my hope is I could still create some value. But that middle of the road prep work, me saying, hey, I've got a training with my team coming up at 10 o'clock, and we're training on how to handle the I don't have the time objection. If I choose to invest an hour of my time clearly building out a training process, selfishly, I'm going to be prepared. I'm going to be in control, and I'm going to give a hell of a lot better training. Unselfishly, I'm going to give a ton of value. And again, I'm going to edify, consciously or unconsciously, the people that are showing up prepared as well. So this thing multiplies, right? If I'm a sales leader and I'm not prepped for my meetings, or I'm not prepped and attention to detail with my trainings and leading with extreme value, this is a way to just suck the life out of your teams, your companies, your organizations. Because they see an hour blocked off on the calendar, they know they have to be there, and they're like, dude, this is going to suck, right? They're slacking their homies saying, when is this meeting going to be over? And you see people kind of laughing while they're on mute if you're virtual, right? We've all been there. So that mid-level preparation, very similar to the blitz, but we're unpacking it a little bit further. We're saying, hey, look, this requires me to lead a group of people. And having a structure, a process, tools, outcomes, how I'm going to get the group to participate, the questions I'm going to ask, the people I'm going to call on. Again, it's just raising the standard of a group. And again, I've been in so many meetings where that mid-level preparation just isn't done. And it turns into a run-on sentence. It turns into whoever's hosting or leading the training, the meeting, the talk, just diarrhea of the mouth with no content or value. Usually those meetings go long too, which is even more painful, right? They go like 30 minutes longer than they're supposed to because nobody will shut up and there's no structure, right? So it's another way to demonstrate prep work, right? And it doesn't have to take a lot of time, especially into today. And in a moment, I'm going to give you some great tools. Really, one great tool that's an absolute game changer for being prepared. Okay? So that middle of the road prep work, right? The things that we have to do, but require us going a bit further, right? The blitz prep work takes 3 to 5 minutes. And even though nobody implements it, it doesn't take a lot of time. The Super Bowl prep work is worth it because you're like, this is the granddaddy of them all. This is the Rose Bowl, the Super Bowl, the World Series, whatever it may be. I'm going to invest all my time to slay. But that mid-level prep work is critical because it binds both. So if I'm killer at my blitz prep work and I'm killer in the Super Bowl, if I can create the habit of being really, really strong in the non-negotiables that I have to do that require a bit more time to be prepared. Again, we talk about distancing ourselves from our competitors, from our peers, from our industry. That's going the extra mile. When you can say, hey, I'm proficient in my blitz prep work. I put the time into my midline prep work. And of course, I knock it out of the park for the Super Bowl. Nobody's knocking it out of the park in those 3 channels. right? It's the way that Tom Brady can be the absolute greatest quarterback of all time, being drafted in whatever round he was drafted in. And, somebody comes in who is the first pick in the draft, Ryan Leaf, San Diego Chargers, right? Diehard San Diego Charger fan when I was a kid. We drafted Ryan Leaf, second overall. First pick in the draft, Peyton Manning. Second pick in the draft, Ryan Leaf. Everybody said Leaf had more talent. He was more athletic. He was more gifted. One person took the path of preparation in all three areas. The other said, fuck it, I'm going to rest on my skill. And we all know what happened, or if you don't, you lived under a rock. Peyton Manning, a couple Super Bowls, 4 or 5 MVPs, Hall of Famer. Ryan Leaf in and out of the league in, I think, 4 years. Bust. Right? So today's episode is all about mastering and, most importantly, committing to prep work. Because honestly, it doesn't even take mastering. Commitment is really all it requires. I'm going to commit to spend 3 minutes of prep work before my meetings and my quick activities. I'm going to spend 30 to 60 minutes of prep work when I'm hosting a training or a talk, or I've got something of significance that's requiring time and attention. And then I'm going to do whatever it takes to win the Super Bowl. Right? So again, that prep work doesn't even have to be perfect. Start by just committing to it. Exercise the muscle, build the habit. If you can implement in those 3 areas, I guarantee you, if we talk 3 months from now, you're in a completely different spot. If we talk a year from now, you've changed the game and the trajectory of whatever you're choosing to do versus the people that you're doing it with. If you write those names down and you say, hey, this is the pecking order today, and you fast forward a year from now and you commit to those 3 simple things, you're going to lap everybody. So how do we go about doing this? It's not even going to be close. So there's an old school and a new school way. And I talked about this in the last episode as well, with how sales reps and companies and organizations take notes in their CRMs. The old school way is I spend, an hour putting together a slide deck, and then I rehearse, the slide deck to see how long it takes. I may look up some third-party examples, and I'm really having to invest a lot of time into the prep work. And a lot of times that's why people don't execute on that mid-range prep work. It's like, shit, it's kind of annoying. It does take more time and heavy lifting, and the return on that time may not always be as great as the Super Bowl, right? Whereas the Super Bowl's got a tremendous return on time. And my blitz stuff, I could develop a habit around that, and that doesn't require a lot of my attention. That's just being prepared and having a pulse, right? So how do I go about using my time most impactfully? AI, right? Same concept that we taught in episode 6. If you haven't listened to episode 6 yet, it's a game changer. It's a must listen. I think it's 15 minutes long, and it's probably the most valuable training that we've hosted on this podcast thus far. But let's use ChatGPT for this same thing, right? So in episode 6, we talked about how you can use ChatGPT as a walkie-talkie, as a voice recorder, as an organic free thinker. Do the same shit for your meetings. Do the same shit for your midline activities. Pull up ChatGPT and just talk through what you're going to be training on. Just talk through the objectives of who you're looking to teach, what you're looking to teach, and spend 10 to 15 minutes just free dumping information in, and then tell ChatGPT to give you a quality outline for how you're going to run said objective. Right? Now, all of us here, we're in sales or influence or entrepreneurship because we're quick on our feet. We're quick-witted. We can think, we can act, we can pivot. That's what makes us successful, is we can go off the cuff and be highly influential. We never want to lose that skill set. So jumping into ChatGPT and me saying, hey, give me the top 5 things that I should talk about in a podcast about preparation, and then giving it a little bit of guidance. Hey, I'd like some feedback on some great talking points on what I call blitz prep and midline prep and Super Bowl prep. Guess what? ChatGPT spilt out some great talking points, and now it allows me to use my brain power, my creativity, and my time to have a roadmap but not get off schedule, right? So now your midline prep work, that prep work that probably used to take an hour and required a lot of data and back and forth, Now we can do what we do best and just freestyle it into ChatGPT to start to build our outlines and cadence for our midline activities. Okay? So again, if you haven't, download the app. Use the microphone. Talk to ChatGPT. Let it organize your thoughts and build your prep work for you. That's the greatest tool that I could share in regards to anything you are prepping for that isn't really a blitz activity. Our blitz activities, we don't need to dive into AI to do that. It's just about knowing what the hell you're doing. But for our mid-range activities, for our Super Bowl activities and starting to be clear and conscious, one of the things I love about AI and ChatGPT and where we're going with this new age of technology is for us as influencers, is for us as salespeople and entrepreneurs and speakers and coaches and consultants, is it keeps us in flow, right? And I talked about this in episode 6, but we're not being interrupted by banging the keys and trying to create outlines and creating structure. We're able to talk our free thoughts, stay in flow, catch the information we're looking to catch while it's fresh. I am the king of great ideas that vanish after I say them once. And it's like, shit, if I would have just documented that in ChatGPT, I'd have that documented forever. I'd have a clean outline. And speaking it into existence will allow me to grab back into that moment so I could teach it even better the second time. So guys, start to incorporate AI, ChatGPT. Start to use the tools we have access to be more productive, to be more prepared. In 2024, and for as long as AI exists after this, which is probably going to be forever, there is no excuse, no reason, no situation where you should not be the most prepared person in the room, because nobody else is going to do the things that it takes to be successful. And no one else is going to tap into simple tools like ChatGPT. That's the cheat code. That's the cheat code. And what's going to happen, guys, is you're going to start to have more fun. You're going to start to have more flow. You're going to get more production out of your meetings, out of your trainings, out of your calls, out of your talks and speeches. And you're going to start to become more polished as a person of influence. And when you do that, more people are going to gravitate to you. You're going to naturally attract more like-minded individuals. You're going to rise up in the rankings of business. You're going to attract more clients and customers, and people are going to start to look at you and say, hey, I wonder what John is doing different. He must be getting all the good leads, right? Or whatever the excuse is. And it's like, no, I'm going the extra mile and taking the simple steps to be overly prepared so that I could lap you time and time again. Cool? Preparation. I hope you took one or two things away from your blitz prep work, your midline prep work, obviously the Super Bowl of Super Bowls, and then using tools like ChatGPT to your advantage. This is episode 7 of Deal Team 6. Again, guys, if you've made it this far, thank you so much. If you've gotten any sort of value, rate the show, write a review, share it to one person. We are relying on this community to continue to grow. I hope everybody has a blessed day, and I'll catch you on the next episode.